Hi, and welcome to Inside Paraplanning, the brand new podcast from the PFS Paraplanners. We're here to chat about all the things paraplanners deal with day in, day out, from the quirks of suitability reports and the challenges of client vulnerability to the mysteries of cash flow modelling and everything in between. Expect honest conversations, expert tips, and a bit of paraplanner chat along the way. We'll also be joined by some brilliant guests from across the paraplanning world, sharing their stories, insights, and thoughts on how our industry keeps evolving. Whether you've been paraplanning for years, just starting out, or you're an advisor keen to understand your support system a bit better, this is your behind-the-scenes look at paraplanning in action. I'm Laura McLeod from the PFS Paraplanning panel, and along with Alan Gow.
Hello.
And Hannah Winnick.
Hi.
We are joined by a very special guest for our first episode, Rob Kingsbury, editor of Professional Paraplanner.
Hello.
So, Rob, you have been an editor in financial services for 30 years and the editor of Professional Paraplanner since the launch in 2014. And it is currently the only dedicated paraplanner magazine in the world. That's pretty cool. Can you say just a bit more about yourself and what inspired you to start a magazine specifically for paraplanners?
Right. So where do I start? I don't know. I started my career, 10 years in customer relations, and then got made redundant and fell into financial publishing, as everybody does. I think very few people actually go, I want to be in financial services. And worked for various magazines, was asked to be deputy editor on the launch of Professional Advisor, if you know that magazine. The company I was working for got taken over, so I left that company in 2009, started writing again, found I really loved writing. Did that for a couple of years, did some PR, incorporated in 2011. And then 2014, Richard Lay and Toby Findencroft, who are the founders of Research in Finance, the publishers of Professional Paraplanner, came to me and said, we found a gap in the market. There's this group of people who have not been served by the publications at the moment. We think they need a magazine of their own. So I jumped at that because I love starting magazines, and the rest is history, I suppose. What did we do? We launched the magazine. So we launched the first magazine at the IFP conference in 2014. I think we took 100 copies to the actual conference and they all went. So we thought, right, we're on to a winner here. And then we added the website, we added events, we added the awards, and the rest is history.
Brilliant. Well, that's amazing. Well, thank you for filling that gap in the market. It's much appreciated. So we're really keen to talk to you because we expect that you might have a unique perspective on paraplanning from where you sit overseeing all the events, the articles that come in, what people are reading the most, what questions you might get. So thanks for being with us today. We're just keen to talk to you a bit about how paraplanning has grown and changed since you started the magazine.
Massively, I think I'd say. Well, actually, it's interesting. It's not paraplanning that's changed, it's the perception. Okay. And the perception of paraplanning's value, which I think has changed. Mm-hmm. So when we first started off, I think it's fair to say that a lot of people viewed paraplanning as an admin role. Mm-hmm. There were obviously exceptions to the rule, but I think that would be fair to say that. Whereas over the years, it's sort of changed. The profile's risen. I'd like to think we had some influence in that. And I think it's really become sort of the technical engine of a lot of financial advice firms. And I think also you've got people sort of spreading their wings. You've got, I'll tell you how it's changed. Just the title now. You've got people who are technical managers, technical specialists in certain areas. The job titles, I think themselves, show how the value of the perception of paraplanning has changed over those 12 years.
I wonder, do you have any inkling of how many paraplanners there might be under whatever job titles they have? Do you have a kind of feel for how many paraplanners there are now?
When we started, I think there were we went out to about 2,000 people, which we thought was probably the bulk of the market or close to the market. Now we go out to over 4,500. So, it's grown a little bit over that time.
I suppose there's people out there who still don't class themselves as paraplanners or, are in jobs that they they probably won't come under that remit. So there's probably a few more as well out there.
No, I'm sure there are. Yes. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people receiving the emails each day. That's a really impressive number, thinking about, going back, I don't know, not all that far, it feels to me, where people didn't know what a paraplanner was. Within the industry, people didn't know what a paraplanner was. Advisors did those roles themselves as part of their, it was not considered the norm to pass that work to somebody else. And since then, we've had this huge outsource market that's grown up. We've got advisors focusing on doing their client relationship stuff. And it kind of felt like we were here to stay and on this trajectory. And then AI comes along and people asking lots of questions about what this means for us. How do you see things changing over the course of the next 10 years?
It's the $1 million question.
Yes, $1 million question. Over 10 years, I mean...
Maybe it should be the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, yes. I think I've been talking to a lot of paraplanners as we've been going around the country and see how they're using AI. I think a lot of people, a lot of advice firms, should we say, are dipping their toe, and their little toe, not their big toe, into AI. This seems to be used mainly to transcribe meetings. And to maybe take notes from those meetings, action points from the meetings. Talking to some other paraplanners who are sort of deep diving into AI, it has a lot of potential, and I think it's going to change things massively. But I think as a tool, I think if it will increase efficiencies and help paraplanners. I'm going to say do the things they don't like to do, because a lot of paraplanners do like to do some of these tasks. But I think it's going to help in suitability report writing. I think I'm talking to people and they're saying, well, we put our suitability reports into AI and say, can you check this against in-house policy, against regulation, all these kind of things. I don't think a lot of people are doing that, as far as I'm aware, but it's certainly sort of the people who are sort of up to their knees in AI are certainly using it in that way. It's great for doing calculations. It's great for putting things into tables. It can produce MI on paraplanner productivity. It's the scope of what it can do and how it will affect the industry, I think, is massive.
I think it was interesting at one of the technical seminar I've just been to. I think it was yourself that said, like, how many people are using it? And like everybody's hands go up. And then, well, how many of you were using it for suitability reports? And that was like a drastic drop. And how many of you were only using, and there was like one person that only used, everybody, like you say, is dipping their little toe in, but for kind of menial, and nobody's quite wanting to give into it yet, because we still want a job at the end of the day. And there's still a long way to go, I think. I like to think anyway.
Yeah. The again, talking to people, you get when people are using it, you have to teach it what you want, but it will remember. If you put something in, it comes back, say that's not right. I want you to do it this way. And then it comes back and it's right. And you say, right, remember that, and you can use it in that way. And the more it learns, the more you use it, the more it becomes part of procedure and processes, the more useful it's going to be.
Do you think there's a fear of AI, or do you think it's simply that the firms that are not using it very much at the moment are happy to let other people kind of lead the way and then find what works, find the best way of doing these things, and then kind of just follow without having to go through the process of making the mistakes that you might inevitably have to go through if you're gonna be the people who are out front trying to push it forward?
Yeah, I think what happens with any technology is people start using it and everybody goes, oh, that's really good, that's good, and they've now sort of ironed out the bugs and we can now use it. Is there a fear of AI? I think there might have been. I don't think so much. I've got an analogy, which is, AI can't change a light bulb, but
yet,
but someone can use it to design a system where you don't need to change light bulbs. I think that's the key thing.
I think there's a certain amount of wariness, especially I learned the term recently, the degree to which it hallucinates and just throws up completely random incorrect stuff. So it's probably just learning to fact check it, and it's not going to do the whole job for people, but it also does sound like there's a lot of really good opportunities that are coming up.
I forget to use it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like I feel like sometimes, I'm so busy doing things the way that we do them, and then I think, I could have asked AI, and it's almost training myself to think, I don't need to do that. I could have just asked, social media post, for example, do I want to write it myself? Not really. It's almost training myself to do it. And I think if you don't have a policy where it's integrated, like that can happen. So maybe I'm just trying to not use it.
I'm glad you said that, because it's not just me.
No.
I do find myself doing things and then thinking, actually, there was an easy way to do that, but it needs to become habit.
But I think also what was really interesting was at the Professional Paraplanner Awards, actually, I was talking to one of the guys there from Fidelity, and he was saying, and I was like, genius, but also, what? He said somebody had written their application for the awards using AI, and they'd cottoned on straight away. And I was like, I mean, that's genius, but also, that's cheating. They didn't win. But also, I would never have thought to do that, because part of that process is like, you want to do it yourself. So whereas AI is good for certain things, I think as paraplanners, like you say, there are parts of the job that we love doing, and are we ready to give that up? Even if AI can do it quicker, are we ready to give that up yet? Because we enjoy doing that research or writing that report. I'm not. And
isn't that part of our identity as well? Because it's part of what makes us human and makes us different. So I know you can train AI, but if you just kind of like allow it to rewrite your text for you without training it in your tone and your style, isn't there just a danger of things becoming homogenized and kind of, if everybody's using the same tools in the same ways and producing the same suitability reports?
I don't think that'll happen though, because you will have an AI within your business which will be ring fenced for obvious reasons, and then you would train it or instruct it how you want things to be. But I'm outsourced. Obviously, you're dealing with different advisors. They've got different tones of voice, so you can say to it, with this particular advisor for his or her suitability reports, this is the tone of voice we want. You give it an example and you say that's what we want. So I don't think it'll be homogenized in that sense. But I think people do need to get to grips with it. They do need to learn it. All paraplanners need to learn AI, because it's here, and it's going to be used more and more. And as business owners find it can increase efficiencies, it can reduce their costs, then they're going to want to employ it.
My worry, and this is where I feel like I do need to implement it a lot more, but my worry is always a little bit like, people talk about handwriting. We're so busy typing that we're sort of, kids now, they don't learn handwriting like we did at school. And it's my worry that, like, with paraplanning, if we're just putting it into a system and go and do it for us, will we lose the ability to paraplan eventually going forward as paraplanners? I'm not talking about people coming into the industry and that's just how they do it, but would we lose the way that we write, or like the nuances that we put in reports that maybe AI doesn't? But then I suppose that's where you have to train it to do it the way that you want and kind of embrace it and work with it. I have heard about people kind of losing their jobs already because, AI will do it for us. And I think that's jumping the gun slightly. You've got to work with it, because there are things that we can do that AI can't at the moment, and vice versa, I suppose.
But it's very hard to implement that when we're all so busy. So
yes,
the theory. I mean, we have played with a couple of tools. So we purchased licenses so that we could securely put information through the tools, and we found what works well, what doesn't work so well. But training it feels like a bigger ask. So I did a bit of training where they were saying about how you can tell Chat GPT, for example. I think you've got something like 1,000 characters where you can tell it what tone of voice and sort of style you want it to adopt for what you're putting through it. And the more you give it, the more it learns from existing examples of your tone and your style. But I don't have time. I've got deadlines, I've got reports, I've got managing a company, I've got doing things like this, and things that I like to do and things that are personal development. And it's so hard to find the time to do the things that ultimately will help move us forward.
You need AI for that.
Well, that's the cycle, isn't it?
that might lead us nice into one of the other questions that we had for Rob. Where there are new things that we need to learn, new technology developments, increasingly more changes in legislation, regulation, and we're busy. Do you have any advice on how paraplanners can keep up with things?
Read professional paraplan. And I do. Thank you for the question. That's it. There are. There are a number of providers out there who've got really, really good websites, technical websites. M&G, Fidelity, Royal London, Scottish Widows. They've all got excellent websites. I think Fidelity have got X many videos where, that can help people taking exams and things like that. So there's a lot out there. I think there's far more than there used to be. Because I think people have cottoned on that paraplanners are pretty good people to have on site.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's... You probably know better than I do, actually, because you have to do it on a daily basis. But
I was wondering if you might know more about paraplanning than any paraplanner in the country.
Paraplanning by osmosis, maybe.
Yeah. And you've got the technical insight seminars that the magazine sponsors as well.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for the prompt.
No problem. And also the PFS, of course, we run a fair few events as well.
Yeah, and I think if... obviously, there's webinars, different people. We do webinars, other people do webinars. I think what I like about our technical insight seminars is that because they're in person and we're doing them around the country, I get to meet lots of paraplanners around the country. Yeah. So I get different points of view and that's brilliant. But we just try to, make those as far-ranging as possible in terms of topics when we do them. But there's a lot of content out there. And I think, AI will just improve that.
What's quite interesting to see is I actually had a provider come directly to our firm to offer a training session for our paraplanners, which is quite new. Normally it'll be CPD for the firm, but to target paraplanners specifically was really nice to see, and I have thanked them for that. But there definitely seems to be, we're doing our best, aren't we, between us?
I think it's nice, those topics and the ones that are at the technical insights and that we try to run through the PFS, they're not advisor sessions that they've just changed the name to paraplanners. Like, they're genuinely for paraplanners. And I think that we appreciate that, whether it's through yourselves or through the work that the PFS, there are good sessions out there that are just for us, which is actually quite nice. And I think advisors like to come to them because they are quite technical.
Yeah, I think it tends to be, it's not so kind of focused on things like fund pitches and market commentary. And I think paraplans typically like personal development and very technical. And I know that I've met advisors that have come to professional paraplanner events in the past. I don't know if they're allowed to be there, but they've commented that the type of content that you get is stuff that they really value.
Yeah, but I think also that's a reflection of where paraplanning has come, isn't it? That there are dedicated, events, and the PFS do them, other people do them.
Yes, other events are available.
Yeah, just for paraplanners, whereas they weren't when we started off 2014. So
every day when I receive the email from professional paraplanner comes through each day, and there's always content that's relevant, whether it's something new or something that kind of makes me think, actually, I feel like I'm a bit rusty on that topic. I need to read that article or a piece of research, or there's so much. How do you generate such high quality content at such a pace?
Well, what's quite nice is we're not chasing news stories, which means we can step back and have a think about what we want to do. So we're about educating and informing, really, rather than... There's lots of other magazines out there who, chase the daily news and everything. Yeah, so what we do is we're trying to put out sort of 3 or 4 different pieces of news every day. So we get press releases, we talk to people, and that's our early morning email that we put out. And then we've got afternoon emails are very, very dedicated. So in the afternoon, like Mondays, we do investment stories. Tuesdays, we do personal development stories and that kind of thing. Wednesdays is technical rather than technology. And Thursdays, we've got an ESG zone. So, we break it up and we just, we get people to contribute. We write stuff ourselves. It's what we do.
And we talked a bit when we were preparing to record this session that you'd be interested to have more paraplanners write for the magazine. It occurred to us that's perhaps not something that people are aware that they can do. So is there any particular requirements, parameters, things you would like to see? How can you encourage our listeners to write for you?
Yeah, really, really do want paraplanners to write for the magazine. We've had a few people write for us over the years. But I think you're right. I think people don't know that they can, or they think, can I? Should I be doing this? Will I be good enough? It's the kind of thing, we all feel when we're approaching that kind of thing. So, yeah, fine. If people want to write, that's great. You just email. If you email editorial@researchinfinance.co.uk. We're looking for things that are educational, technical, if you want to write about technical things, development, particularly, just a good story, really. We want to hear what people are doing. One of my favourite articles to write is when I talk to paraplanners and write about their stories. So, I think people like to hear about what other people are doing, which is why people are listening to podcasts.
Yeah, very much so. I think it all these things provide an important element of sort of community and peer support within the paraplanning field. I think there's probably quite a few of us who work in small companies where maybe they're the only paraplanner or there's not many, or, it's just really great to find out what other people are up to and how people are doing things. And
I think it's quite a solitary profession at times, especially from the outsourced perspective. Like if you work from home, or, if it's just you in the company, or you're in a small in-house company. So actually creating little pockets of community. Like I know we bang on about the outsourced community, Al and I, all the time about how wonderful it is, but it is a little family and everybody's very supportive. And actually, we're very lucky to have that. If you work in a small in-house team where you could be the only paraplanner, if you don't know anybody else, or, so it's like you say, it's good to hear what other people are doing so that actually I'm doing the right thing, but also that there are people out there that are in the same situation as you, and actually you can touch base with them and then create a little community there as well, which I think is something very, very niche to paraplanning. That doesn't happen with advisors and planners. It's very much they're there for them, whereas we're kind of a bit more, I hate to say family, but it is a bit more of a family.
But without that, you're kind of working in like a silo, aren't you? You can't necessarily see what other people are doing or how they're doing it. And so something like Professional Paraplanner opens up a window, I suppose, into other people's ways of working. And there's so many ways of doing every element of the job. That's just a really valuable thing to be able to share. And I think that there is a real sense of community amongst paraplanners, and it's not, within the outsource world, it doesn't feel competitive. And maybe that's just because there's so much demand, but also because we're all doing slightly different things.
And more supportive of each other.
Yeah.
Like there's no, as much as it's not competitive, people are genuine. Like we, in one of the WhatsApp groups, somebody the other day said, I've got a lead, I can't help them. Genuinely can't help them. I spoke to them, and when I explained this, the advisor was really touched by that. He said it was a really nice thing for the paraplanner he'd spoken to recommend someone else, because he said that would never happen in my world. And I was like, well, that's just how we are. Like we want to help each other.
It was one of the things that I really noticed, having come from working on advisor magazines, when I started sort of talking to paraplanners. That was so refreshing. The paraplanners would talk to each other, they'd help each other out. If someone would pose a question and say, not quite sure, is this right? And someone would say, yeah, or I can help you out with that. Or people who have been setting out outsourced businesses, they've said, I was really, I was having second thoughts, and I spoke to, when I've just put something out and said, can I talk to somebody? And they took all these answers, and it's fantastic. And I think that's, do you know what that is? That's the difference between an industry and a profession. Yeah. Which is why I think paraplanning is a profession.
That's a really nice take on it. I like that.
Do you have any thoughts, as a bit off the cuff, but on how paraplanning can gain more recognition as a profession in its own right?
I think there's definitely a movement in the right direction for paraplanning, isn't there? Because it went from something that was, as you said earlier, Rob, seen as an admin role, to being something that can be very, very technical. I mean, do you still see a very wide range of what gets called a paraplanner in different firms that you meet with?
Yeah, I think it's not viewed as admin anymore. Well, unless the firms are really backward. If I think, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a yeah. I mean, the important thing is you've got PFS and CISI and people supporting paraplanning. So yeah,
just keep up the good work, everybody. I think
I don't know what else paraplanning can do. I mean, this, as you say, Alan, it is heading in the right direction. It is becoming more and more professional. It's how you define what's a profession.
Yeah. And I think it's also now, I know when I started, advisors didn't even know what you'd have to sort of sell what you did as a paraplanner before they even thought about, which one of you am I going to use? But maybe now it's taking what we do as paraplanners and explaining to the rest of the world outside of financial services. So educating people in, careers fairs and that kind of, because it is a profession and because it's a real life job now, actually taking that past just our industry so that I know that there was a call to put it on like the national careers. It's now an option there. And I know it sounds like such a menial thing, but on drop-down menus for insurance, things like that, I'd like to not write financial analysis or something for my job. I want to be able to write paraplanner. So maybe that's the next. I know that's not like the most exciting thing, but maybe it's becoming a bit of more of a mainstream job that people know what it is outside of what we do.
I don't know, the first time I saw paraplanner on a drop-down list when I was renewing insurance, I was like, yes!
You get very excited.
It's a win.
Yeah. Well, it's all good progress.
If that's not recognition, I don't know what is. Now, it's a natural way into financial services for a lot of people. If we're going to have people coming into the industry, if we're going to have people becoming financial advisors, I don't want to be a financial advisor. It's not for me. I don't have the right skill set to sit with people, and it's not what sits with me. I think when I found paraplanning, I was like, this is me. This is me. But for a lot of people, it is a stepping stone, and that's absolutely fine. It's a great way. In fact, it's to be encouraged. It's not fine. It's more than fine. It's a way into the industry. It's a way for us to bring new blood in. And, we've got a lot of retiring advisors, a lot of consolidators out there buying up their companies, and there aren't enough advisors. The demand is huge. So how do we get people in? And this is something that if people don't know it exists, how do you even make that decision? Everybody fell into financial services. How often do you come across, Rob, have you ever come across somebody that said, I set out to be a paraplanner?
No. I think the other thing is qualifications, because there are more and more people moving towards sort of level 6 and beyond. And I think if the more paraplanners who are moved beyond level 4, and the more it will be seen as a profession. The higher the qualification, I think that the more respect that you're going to get.
I think there was quite an interesting topic on LinkedIn a while ago about regulating paraplanning as a profession, and the general consensus was no, we don't want regulation. Qualifications, yes. Regulation, not necessarily, because everybody's job is so different. So how do you regulate what paraplanning is, essentially? But the conversation of qualifications came up, and I know when we've had sort of PFS meetings and we've had research that we've discussed, however, some different networks, the levels that I feel like I always come back to this piece of research, but the levels that they had, it was like 40% hadn't even sat a level 3 for qualification, but were classed as paraplanners. And so I think that's where there needs to be something. I'm not saying you have to be level 6 to be a paraplanner, but I think there has to be some sort of a way of quantifying it, I suppose, because there are a lot of people that will class themselves as career paraplanners that have done the job for years, but not necessarily gone into the qualifications route. And then there's people that come in and do all their exams in the first, 6 months to a year. But it's like, do we have that conversation about qualifications versus experience, and then about how, if it does get regulated? So there's so much that can happen with paraplanning, I think, is what I'm trying to say. It's just a bit of an unknown. And I think that doesn't help matters when we're trying to say, well, what is a paraplanner? How do we develop it? What's the next step for it? Because there's so many anomalies that kind of makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, I think from the surveys we've done over the years, and I can't quote numbers off the top of my head, but more and more paraplanners are level 4 now than they were when we first did the surveys. I think as people come in, into the profession. They are, they expect to be able to do exams and to get qualifications. And most people I talk to want to go as far as they can. So I think that will all help.
We were always told you should be at least as qualified, if not slightly more, than some of your advisors, because they rely on you for technical support. And I thought that was quite an interesting way of looking. I mean, it was like my first week and I was like, okay, that's a lot of pressure. But, it is that mentality that we are expected to be the technical knowledge, fundamental knowledge.
I think that's what's going to protect us going forward as well. AI will be able to do some of what we currently do without us having much, if any, input at all. And the value in being a paraplanner has got to be in being that sounding board, being there for your advisor to discuss things, batting things back and forth, trying to work out how to approach situations, and having that level of humanity that the machines can't do at the moment.
At the moment.
Okay, we're coming back to the magazine a little bit more. So you're all online now. Do you miss doing the print edition?
Oh, so much.
I'm so glad.
Really? I'm seeped in the print side of things, really. So, I was so disappointed. We did 90 issues, and I just think, can we get to 100? Can we? But it wasn't to be.
Would you ever just do like a one-off Christmas special? I don't know what you would write in it that would be any different, but once a year, like an annual.
Yeah, it just because obviously the magazine, the publication's funded by advertising and sponsorship, so it was just a move away from printed magazines within our part of the industry. Actually, I walked into my supermarket the other day. It must have been about 50 feet of magazines, and you go, well, there's obviously still a demand for magazines, but anyway,
that's because they're still hairdressers.
And dentists.
I think people are trying to spend less time on their phones and screens in general, and maybe sort of going a bit more back to...
I also liked having them, because I'm such a loser. I used to have them all in my little magazine racks in my office because it was good to go back. I used to mark up articles that I liked, but it was good to go back to. Whereas like now when I find myself thinking, I've read about that, how do I've got to like physically save something, which is fine. But that's what I loved about the print, was that I could just mark it and be like, I'll come back to that when sit down in the morning and have a good read or whatever.
Lots of people said that.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not just me. I do.
I feel like we're very kindred spirits here, Al. I
find things online and you bookmark it and then it just disappears into this list of bookmarks. And I do feel that it's harder to find, but that's probably me showing my age. I don't know. And presumably, Rob, moving away from the print version means that you can actually put out more content because you're not constrained by having a monthly.
Yeah, you're not constrained by page numbers or page sizes. So that's great because we can run articles of any length. Roughly, for people who want to write for the magazine, 600 to 800 words. But yeah, and also we can print as many news stories as we like. So we didn't do news in the print copy. It was all articles. So that's given us another string to our bow, so to speak.
Yeah, I think for all of us in this room, we've been through a process of kind of becoming comfortable with doing this because we're. There's a PFS Paraplanning article each month that you kindly put out for us. But yeah, the first time you write something like that and you're thinking, is this valuable? Will someone else be interested in reading what I've got to say? So have you got any tips for people who are considering getting in touch to write something?
There's always somebody who's interested in what you've got to say. Always. Because there's always people who think like, well, you and Hannah here just said, well, we're kindred minds. So, it proves the point. We edit it. If people write something and they're not quite sure, we will edit it before we publish it anyway. And we're quite happy to go back and forth, if people want to do that. But most paraplanners I know can write because that's what they do. Yeah. And it's what you if you're passionate about something, you'll just write it. And then if you send it through and I can go through it and edit it and send it back and say, look, I've changed a few tweaks here and there or whatever, or I just want to put an idea forward and say, would you like an article on this particular topic? And I can say yeah or no.
So presumably things like, we were talking amongst ourselves earlier about how we're getting a bit twitchy about the budget coming up and how difficult it is to do planning when you don't know where the goalposts are going to move to. You just know they're going to move. But that kind of thing must open up a huge amount of potential content for you, because there's all the technical changes and all the planning points that will come out of the budget that everybody needs. We really value that content because we want to see other people's takes on what this means and how to change what we do.
Yeah, and there's a hell of a lot of hype and everything before it, as we know, because we've just got to listen to the news and things. But none of it's relevant until the day, because you don't know what's going to happen. It's the period afterwards really that's the important part. So what we'd like to do is to obviously put considered content out afterwards. So there will be people who give us sort of comments and things. Experts in the field that we'll put out immediately afterwards and about what's happened, and then we like to do some more considered stuff later on, so that once the dust has settled, so to speak, so that and there's always sort of some paraplanning angle that people suddenly go, oh, hang on, what about that? And so if we can publish something on that, as I say, educate, inform, then we're very happy.
I mean, between recording today and this podcast actually going out, there will have been the budget and things will have changed, but that's always the case, isn't it? It does feel like there's constant changes and it's very difficult to keep up, and it's difficult to juggle all the things we've been talking about: regulatory changes, new products coming out, regulations changing, and trying to build in time to play with AI and work out how it can help us do our jobs. Is that something you see pretty commonly across paraplanning, sort of struggling to keep up?
I think all paraplanners are busy, aren't they? I mean, just doing the job itself without anything else. I mean, you outsource paraplanners. I don't know how you do that, really. You must have 36-hour days or something.
I don't think we're entirely sure either, to be honest.
Delegation, that's the way forward.
If you were not the editor of Professional Paraplanner magazine, what do you think you would be doing?
Editing another magazine.
That was an easy one.
Have you got any other particular interests outside of financial services?
I tell you what, there's the opportunity to be creative now is huge, and we can do podcasts. You can do YouTube. You could. It's exciting. So it's just I think I would be definitely editing something, but it might not be a magazine. It might be something else. It might be a podcast.
I feel like I need to go further now. Like if you weren't allowed to be an editor, what would you be doing?
And if it had to be outside of financial services, what would the topic be? Little window into the real Rob Kingsbury.
Personal training.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to look at me, it probably belies that. But yeah, personal training. During lockdown, I actually qualified as a personal trainer.
Oh, wow.
Cool, okay.
For fun. But I quite like that. It was good.
Could plug that as well as Professional Paraplanner.
They're a Rob Kingsbury
PT.
Yeah, PT.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for joining us and talking to us about everything to do with paraplanning today. That's what we've got time for. Thanks so much for tuning in to our very first episode of Inside Paraplanning. We've loved kicking things off with Rob as our first guest, and hope you have found all he has to say as interesting as we have. Thanks to Hannah and Alan for being part of the conversation, and thanks to everyone listening. Don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode, share with your team, and join us over in the PFS Paraplanners LinkedIn group to keep the conversation going. See you soon on the next episode of Inside Paraplanning.